invite Neil Salt to the stage, Chief Marketing Officer for Aurora Group, who's going to talk about business models wrapped around lighting, or maybe lighting wrapped around business models.
You never know.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, good morning everybody. How you doing? I'd like to firstly thank the organisers and all the previous speakers for all their insights. It was particularly poignant that I happened to follow Piet and Sonus, because I'll tell you they were an inspiration for me and for our company in trying to do something better with lighting control. I hated lighting control. The experience was just a very frustrating one, both on a home level, personal, and in business. And so part of what I want to show you today is our vision, as well as some of the things that we have achieved and how that I feel is going to transform the business model for the lighting industry and how we survive in this world. And also I'd like to say thank you to Philips. I think they made lighting cool, right? Bulbs were just these things you had to buy, and suddenly they made it something you want to buy. And for that I'm grateful, and hopefully we can sort of add to that with what we do in our space as well. So a little bit about Aurora. We live in the ceiling. The Philips Hue, as you know, is a really strong product in the retrofit space. Aurora as a company has got 30 years experience of doing things in, on, or hanging from a ceiling in a variety of verticals in a variety of countries. We put about 7 to 10 million things in ceilings every year, and our goal is to try and make as many of those as smart as possible at the lowest possible cost by adding communications, sensing, and technology into those things to add value beyond illumination with the products. So I want to take you on a little evolution of lighting, a little 101 of where we are and how we got there. So I'm going to start in 1999 because that for us was the start of what we call this sort of evolution. At that point, lighting existed as separate bits. So the luminaire, the power source, and the light source could exist independently from 3 different companies, and their primary role in life was to give you light. So you're paying for some metal and some glass, and it heats up, and you get this illuminance, okay? And then in 2006, the wonderful LED came along, and all anyone wanted to do with it was dim it, and it was only 1 to 3 watts, and I kept asking, why do you want to do that? But nevertheless, people got very frustrated that they'd put this LED lamp in, and it wouldn't react very well to the electronics in the transformers and drivers and dimmers, and it was a real ball ache for contractors. And a lot of faith was lost in LED because of its poor performance and poor output at that time. So then around 2013, we decided as a company we'd start to put those bits that bothered people together, pack it up, and start the integration process. And so we put the power source and the light source and the luminaire together and said, there you go, if you put that in, we can guarantee a lot more than we did before as to the performance of this product. We can't do anything about the switch, but we'll guarantee what we're doing here. And then in 2010 was the first time we introduced what we call an ASIC, an application-specific IC. There's about 24 of them in your iPhone, and lighting never really used these kind of technologies, but we used it to get rid of the driver, miniaturize technology down. And this was the sort of start of digitization of LED. LEDs are typically a digital light source, and for years all we've done is sort of beat it up by using analog resistive dimmers to try and throttle its power. So we envisaged a world where we could actually communicate directly to the LED chip, to the light source through its power or directly, and that was the start of digitization in LED and miniaturization, everything in one fitting. So Lighting 3.0 is the name we've given for this sort of next wave, as we see coming, where you have conscious, connected luminaires that combine sensing, data, power, light, individual addressability, communications, all wrapped up in one luminaire. And as I said at the beginning, the key is to get this at a mass market cost. It's easy to do it in a $60 additional thing that you stick onto a luminaire in a high bay, but we operate in the ceilings, a lot in residential, and so our play was to try and get it into a £20 fixture by adding minimal extra cost to this fitting. So that's the vision as we see it. And that's when the lights start to do more than just provide illuminance. And Aurora's vision of providing the value beyond the illumination that the product does is all based around us adding lights to an IoT lighting ecosystem and starting to provide everything as a service. When I stand up at lighting conferences and I tell people that lights are going to be free and the dimmers are dead, it's not very well received. But I do believe that we have to reinvent ourselves as an industry. Lighting people don't go to control seminars, control people don't go to lighting seminars. It's crazy. And lighting's existed as this other thing in a building, and we want to try and integrate it much more. So my vision on a building at the minute, an on-premise environment, is very much about these multiple networks that exist. So currently in anything from a home to a restaurant to a hotel, retail space, you have a number of different networks going on in that environment. So lighting being one of them. The control network, you have to pull 2 wires to every light so you can get control of it with a hardwired system. Daylight sensors that would exist in there to optimize the light based on the amount of ambience that's coming into the room. Motion, is there someone there, isn't there? Turn the lights, turn them off. More recently, beacons, indoor positioning services, iBeacons being put into stores, and footfall monitoring systems. So if you speak to a retailer, they'll just, you know, as a guy in charge of systems infrastructure, he just puts his head in his hand when you tell him there's another network to come into his environment and deal with. And so there's many issues with these kind of systems, multiple trades, licensing costs, difficult to upgrade. And we know that 70% of the stock we need for buildings until 2050 is already built. I mean, it's already wired. So putting this stuff in afterwards can be challenging. So Lighting 3.0 is really around this single essential network. You've got no choice to put lights in. They're everywhere. They go throughout the building. So if we can start to add all of these elements and supplant the need for all of these other networks, we can remove them and we can leverage the luminaire as the ultimate IoT endpoint. And by pulling that information up through intelligent distributed gateways into the cloud, we start to break down some of the key benefits, the key categories. We've chosen environmental intelligence. That covers things like the basic control of the luminaire, what's going on in the environment. So how many people are in there, what is the temperature, what is the light performance doing, etc. And then the human engagement, if we can see people through sort of a version of PIR sensor, but much smaller, it's all integrated into the luminaire, very ubiquitous. We can use beacon technology built into the luminaires to enable to, through permissioning, engage with people across this network of lighting. And finally, we can start in the future to look at how we can engage with inanimate objects, products, assets from warehouses, and start to look at the life cycle of a product through its transition from being constructed through to the retail store, through to the home. So to walk through some of those benefits on the control and scene setting environment, if each luminaire is communicable and the dimming and the control, everything happens in each individual luminaire, there's no need for a separate dimming control system. You're sending it a digital signal and everything's occurring at that luminaire. Okay? Makes it very easy to change configurations in a conference center like this. As the doors open, you can change the way the lights interact on various scenes dynamically. No additional wiring, all software configurable. Predictive maintenance, we have a black box, I call it, effectively inside each luminaire, and it's tracking pretty much everything it's doing. It produces a Twitter feed of sorts about every actuation and everything the luminaire is sensing and pulling back. And the algorithms that can run on top of this allow us to predict when the luminaire is going to fail. We know what the performance of the chip should be, how many hours it should run under a particular temperature, and therefore, as the actuation and the device's environment changes, we can figure out how long that product's going to last and give you real-time maintenance information. We can also tell how well the LED is performing. There are sensors that point down into the room, but also sensors pointing up into the luminaire. And that's tracking the performance of the light, the degradation of the light, the quality, the color temperature, so you can tell when a light's going beyond its operating parameters. And basic daylight harvesting, the more light in the room, the less power needs to be consumed. And the occupancy, the sensing technology that we developed to put into these luminaires enables us to find heat mapping algorithms and basically figure out who's moving where, volume, velocity, and direction. So very useful for footfall, as well as security management as well. So on the human engagement side, security tracking, I say security, that could be for the well-being of elderly, it could be security within a building. It's about putting a passive type of tag, a smart card that could communicate with the lights and open and close doors and activate movement of people around the buildings. Or through implicit permissioning, allow consumers to engage within a store via an application through the lights as beacons and start to provide things like location-based engagement, layout optimization for retail stores, and perhaps automated checkouts and offers using Apple Pay. So shoplifting would be a thing of the past because everything you've got on you as you go out is going to be tracked, so no getting away with that anymore. The future possibilities, I could hypothesize about this forever, but some of the things that excite me is the democratization of data. So a lot of the time people say, oh yeah, but what about the privacy and the security? And I say, well look, firstly, if you use the internet, you're giving everything away and you're getting somewhere to put your pictures on Facebook, right? It's great. And you don't know what they're doing with your data. So what we want to do in this system is democratize the data and really give complete transparency over what is being captured and allowing the user to implicitly decide what they want to do with that information. So they're the broker of their own data. So for example, they walk into a store, they pick up a smart product, the store has identified they bought that smart product, and they know what happens before, during, and now after the sale. So when the consumer takes the product home, they could choose to engage with a brand, they could choose to engage with the energy company to tell them how much energy they're using, and in return they would get discounts, loyalties, etc. But it gives them that transparency and that permissioning. So it enables brands to connect directly to consumers, so it disintermediates that channel. The loyalty industry is a $2 trillion a year industry, pretty much dominated by the supermarkets, who throttle what happens at that checkout desk, whereas this system, you could conceive if you can engage with lights, with products and people, you can connect the who with the what and where, and allow that person to choose to share that information for whatever benefits are available. And that helps us with 360-degree product life cycle. You know much more about how a product's used than ever before. For us in lighting, it helps us with our research and development. We can design for actual use cases rather than worst-case scenario. We know exactly how the LEDs are used. A lot of the time we're designing lights that last 50, 60,000 hours. Well, some buildings aren't going to last that long, frankly. And so, it's about designing and optimizing the light for the benefit. And as we know, insights of how it's used, we're able to affect that. So I see this sort of perfect storm, as I call it, for smart lighting. We're very fortunate in the lighting industry to have gone through a number of paradigm shifts, from incandescent to fluorescent to LED to fire-rated to now smart lighting. And there's not many industries that I know of that have experienced this shift so rapidly. LED technology changes every 90 days. So I call lights strawberries. They're pretty much, by the time you've picked them, shipped them, they're out of date. And so it's a real stockholding problem for us and our customers. The one aggravation is, why do you keep changing? It's like, because what was available yesterday is not available anymore. It's a huge problem, but it's spurring on a huge amount of growth in the industry. And the legislative and the regulations coming in, forcing people to change, are obviously having an influence on LED adoption as well. And now we've digitized it, we can talk to it. We can integrate it in this M2M, IOE, everything is a service model, pay per lumen, pay per watt, offer up a platform where you can choose how people pay and use for their lighting. And the investment within the entire industry as a whole has led to a lot of technological developments. And when we conceived what we wanted the ideal solution to be for Lighting 3.0, the stuff didn't exist, and I'll show you what some of that was. So it's a land grab at the minute, we call it, an opportunity for an ecosystem within the lighting space. In our industry, it's pretty old school for years, lots of incumbents, and people are reluctant to change. Invested in a lot of existing technologies, but really it's the end user's experience which suffered. So we believe that there's an opportunity in the next couple of years. The pink line shows the LED adoption rate. We're at about 15% globally with installed light points, and as that goes up, it's a time for a platform to come in and start to try and unify that, okay, and not be for the betterment of just one manufacturer or another, but really looking at the benefit for the end user. How does it help them? As I said, Sonos was an inspiration because they figured out how to take something that, you have to pay a guy £500 a day to come in and wire up and turn it into a simple, elegant experience. Why can't lighting be the same? I think that users will drive a lot of the demand for these kind of systems. So I believe lighting is the Trojan horse of the building Internet of Things. There's more of us than anything in any built environment. It's pervasive, it's ubiquitous, and it's been mechanical and it's been dumb up until recently. And when LED came along and now digitization communications, we've empowered these, pretty innocuous devices to start to become this sensing endpoint where we can start to layer all these services on there. And Tony Fadell pointed out that, the hardware of a thermostat sits on the wall for decades. Well, we've got thousands of things stuck in the ceiling for a very long time as well. So there's a real opportunity to leverage that infrastructure. This is the slide that lighting manufacturers don't like. This tells them that their businesses are going to be less significant in many years to come, and so business intelligence industry tells us that software and services win by a factor of 10 by 2020. And an article in the Harvard Business Review back in 2005, I think it was, told us that any manufacturer who hasn't awakened to the fact that there must be a service business is in serious peril. And that was 10 years ago, and they still haven't figured it out. So there's a lot of change happening in our industry. The Chinese are coming in, commoditizing light. They're basically allowing companies in China to sell lights below cost. So they are saying, here you go, Mr. ABC Lighting, you can lose $5 million this year as long as you beat those Taiwanese guys or those European guys. and they're making good stuff. People are being flown in, their salaries are being trebled in order to make lighting products at below cost. So what do? You have to figure out a new model, which is what we're working on. It's very hard for them to come down the channel, provide the service and solution, so that's where we're heading. The technical challenges for a platform in lighting, well, there's 50 different platforms in this smart environment, and we've seen many of them and heard about them, all at different stages of maturity. I don't believe any format will win. I don't think it's that Betamax VHS debate anymore. Okay, there was just one tape recorder doing one thing. There's different things doing 100 different requirements at the minute, and I think multi-format will win. Ubiquity, the best fit solution for the best industry. And as we've heard about APIs, but not just here's an API, you can turn something on and off. Collaborative APIs which allow user benefits. Okay, I was talking to a gentleman earlier about smart metering. If a smart meter can measure your energy, and if it can tell you exactly what's used, and then you can take that data and roll it into the lighting system and actually show people what they're saving on their lights, and they get real-time information. That's two collaborative systems working together for a proper user and benefit as well. So this is my pain. This is what drove me. Too many remotes, apps, things on the wall in my home drove my wife mad. If I left the house, she couldn't turn the lights off. And so this was the pain that we've all experienced with these multiple interfaces and remotes and hardwired and application things. So what do you need to do lighting 3.0, this sort of everything as a service nirvana, conscious connected solutions? We need a number of things, none of which really lighting companies have traditionally been adept at or confident in. Gateways, WIMs, NSense sensings, API, REST APIs, SDKs, all things if you go into most lighting boardrooms and start talking, they think you're coming from a foreign planet. But you definitely need some programmers. It's a key role. It's not just about hardware anymore, and I keep telling our product development teams, hardware's an aspect, but programmers, don't underestimate them. We've heard software has changed audio, okay? It's changing everything. Software's eating everything. So we need some programmers for sure. And if you know anybody, come to call me. You need an operating system. We want an operating system for lighting. Everything else that's hardware's got an operating system. Why can't we have one? So you need a platform, a system that's built by lighting, hopefully for people who get it. Communication. If you want these things to talk, you're going to need a really robust enterprise-scale kind of communication protocol, preferably a mesh technology. So if you take one light out, it reroutes. It needs to be stable. It needs to be robust. The difference with a lighting mesh and most other meshes with smart things is there's a visual acuity. If you press the button on the wall and the lights start coming on in a Mexican wave fashion over the course of 3 or 4 minutes, that's not really conducive to a well-lit environment. So we struggle because the performance has to be Ferrari-like. It has to be on, zero latency, so you can't just pick up any old mesh. People can see the result of what that communication does, so it's key to work on a smart mesh. And sensors, and we're told 40% of all data will come from sensors by 2020. And therefore integrating small discrete sensors. There's one there right in the corner of the lens of one of our products. It's so small, and that sensor does things like capture motion, light, movement, direction, color temperature, color deviation, and a whole host of stuff more, all in a chip that's only 4 by 5 millimeters into a tiny ASIC. And it works in that form because you have to make millions of them. And when you do that, you get these little chips that, as I said, exist in your phone, now starting to come into the lighting world. And you need some serious server horsepower. This can't be done just with a little hub in your home ticking away. The algorithms, the machine learning, the rules engines that are really going to add the value to this whole system need to exist in the cloud, a scalable cloud. A lot of the work can be done locally. Our system's been designed around a very high-performing gateway, but a very low-cost gateway. And you need the cloud to be able to scale. When people come home at 5:30 and they press the button and lights start to come on, you can't have latency. We ran some tests with 10 million lights, which is about what we sell in a year. If they were all smart and they all had sensors in one day they'd produce more data than Twitter does. So there's a lot of data that's got to be dealt with here. It's a lot of small data, but it's got to be housed, it's got to be stored, it's got to be worked on. So that was a key part of the solution. Not just any old cloud's going to work. And of course you need a light, and you need that light to be cost effective, smart, conscious and connected. And as I said earlier, we operate in the ceiling. A lot of residential products. That particular one there, it's previous generation, 1.5 million of those on its own, sold in 1 year. And we wanted to get the technology in that product so we could start to put it in there. So it's inherently got Gooee inside, it's got smartness inside of it, and you could activate the benefits and features as a service as and when you needed them. But none of this comes naturally to a lighting manufacturer. That's what a typical punching and casting station looks like in a shop in China. So it's a very different world. And so within our company, we recognised that it was key to have best-in-class partners. Okay, it was key to find people in each area of expertise that could work on this in a key way. And so we partnered with Gooee, and Gooee is actually a company that's developed a full-stack ecosystem designed for connecting lighting manufacturers to the IoT. It's an open, interoperable, accessible ecosystem. And I'm going to play you a short 1-minute video which just kind of explains how they do it. So a bit of an insight into that and what it all means.
How do you create a global lighting and sensory network with 1 billion endpoints? The answer to the biggest problems can often be found in the smallest of places. Gooee has designed and engineered an enterprise-scale IoT lighting ecosystem built for commercial, retail, hospitality and industrial applications. We provide sensing, control and communication components that integrate with an enterprise-scale cloud platform, which offers a service-driven, scalable framework for lighting manufacturers to deliver value beyond illumination. We start with our sensor ASICs, which capture environmental, human sensing and LED performance data. These are integrated into a variety of luminaires or as remote standalone devices. Our WIMs control luminaires using a groundbreaking Bluetooth meshing protocol and offer additional functionality such as predictive maintenance, consumer engagement and asset tracking through our unique scalable gateway environment. The distributed gateways can talk and listen to our cloud ecosystem. The cloud platform enables the development of service-driven applications, creating a truly unified lighting ecosystem for the ultimate in LED, sensing, data and automation. Gooee, making smart simple.
Okay, so that's Gooee. We're pleased to be one of the initial launch partners, and there's multiple other manufacturers that are going to start to deploy this and have the Gooee inside, the concept within their products. And so, to conclude, a couple of things that I believe lighting will be and emerge as a dominant IoT endpoint. Software and services are going to beat hardware by 10. It's about total cost of ownership. It's about reducing the bills of the services, the layers that have to go into an environment, creating these value-driven insights, democratizing the data, and above all, creating things that people want and need that are easy to use. And Lighting 3.0, we believe, is that transformative business model. So thank you for listening, and hopefully some of these solutions we can avoid situations like this in the cartoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. We are running a bit over. You have a stand here in the...
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So please visit Neil during the lunch break, which is about to come up close to the top of the hour. So once again, thank you very much, Neil.